welcome to Walk and Talk, Theoretically Asked Questions. I am your host, Sodi,
And I'm your co-host, Trina.
and we present to you Walk and
Walk and
Talk,
Talk,
the podcast.
Today, we are going to talk about how long-term stresses can have a reaction on our bodies. The reason why we came up with this topic is because New Year, new health. There's all these resolutions that's coming about. It's a trend. It happens, but for us and for anyone, it's a lifestyle change, especially when you recognize that some stresses have started to develop into different things from impacts on our bodies.
Yeah.
So let's get started. So first thing I read about was, what are the long-term effects of stress on our bodies? And the things that came up was all things that had some kind of something I can relate to. Here are the top 10. Top 10 impacts on our bodies for long-term stresses is depression, immune deficiencies, lack of sleep, anger, aging rapidly, weight loss, drinking excessively, isolation, headaches, decreased libido.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack on all 10 of those.
Got this on mellow.ed.com.
mellow.ed.com. Shout out to mellow.ed.com.
So this is the top 10 long-term effects of stress. And the reason this came up is because I have an immune disease. And I also know some other people where I know that they've been undergoing a lot of stresses and different things in their health. Their health has been impacted in some kind of way. And so it shows differently on everybody, right? And I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, no, definitely. I have, unfortunately, a hormonal imbalance, and that requires me to take certain types of medication to balance it out, as well as a balanced diet. Prior to that, I was not taking care of myself just like anyone, or being cautious about what I eat, what I don't eat, what I consume, whether it's fruits or vegetables or whatever I cook at home, what I buy at the supermarket. Are there canned fruits? Are they frozen? Are they fresh? Are they organic? And all of these things contributes a lot to your health. And
definitely.
And believe it or not, a lot of the things that we put on our body not only affects our health, but it also affects our mental health. And as we continue to intake all of the chemicals that are put into all these foods that are out there, and whatever is detrimental to your body is detrimental to your mental health, to your mind, to everything down the line. It affects you. Stress is a big deal. It's a big deal because it leads, as you mentioned, the top 10, it leads to so many things and we don't notice it. A lot of us, especially us mothers who are working mothers full time, we have our kids in sports, they have tons of activities. Aside from our own personal life, we tend to throw things under the rug. We tend to sweep them under the rug.
We'll handle it later. We'll do it later on the weekend. We'll catch up later. And unfortunately, that's a lot of people. A lot of people, not just women, but moms, dads. Like, we're just, you know what? We're just trying to get through the week. And
and what about and the lack of sleep? Let's not just talk about everything that you have to do on a daily basis, because you have to do them, but the lack of sleep.
Yes.
So stress causes insomnia, causes people to not be able to sleep. Your mind doesn't shut off. You're in the middle of the night, you're laying down and you're ready to go to bed, but all of a sudden it's just that spark of everything is quiet, and your mind has nothing but to think about all of these things, and all of a sudden you're thinking about a million trillion things in your mind.
Mm-hmm.
And in the end, you're thinking about nothing. And you go to bed at 9, 10 o'clock at night, and it's already 4 o'clock in the morning and you're still awake. And then you go about your day, falling asleep, doing all the duties that you have to do. And the next day is the same thing. And the next day, and the next day, and the next day, and the next day. That puts so much stress into your body. That causes so many health issues. I was one of those folks for a long time. I tried ZQL. I tried
Melatonin.
melatonin for sure. That was the last one that I tried. I went to the doctor, and they gave me Ambien, and it's like, I don't want to take any medication. I just want to I want to be able to tackle what it is that's making me not be able to sleep. What's preventing me from having a full night's sleep? What is it? I need to get to the root cause of this issue, because now I'm entertaining the situation in a way, instead of, I'm blocking it in a way, instead of tackling it right away. So all of that led to, now I have side effects because of all this other stuff. Naturally, you're putting chemicals in your body to force you to do something that you can do naturally.
Right.
And it was just, it's a trickle effect. After that, obviously, I no longer have to take any of that almost 13, 14 years later. And yeah, absolutely. It's very good. I feel really good. But due to the health issues that I inquired that I inherited, I should say, not inquire, I did not want it. I inherited after I gave birth to my last son 5 years ago.
Time flies.
Time flies. Long time. I was forced to change my lifestyle, and changing my lifestyle led me to try holistic ways to improve my health without putting so much chemicals in my body. And a lot of that was to be able to help me sleep. Meditation.
Yes.
Yoga. Reading. Just having time for myself really truly helped. And without that, I would still be stuck in a loop of the same cycle for the last 14, almost 15 years.
Yeah. So I remember that time when you just had him, and I know that even for me, there was a time where I went through a dark phase where I was depressed. Like I isolated myself. You didn't hear from me. And there was often times where you were calling me, hey, what are you doing? I'm not doing whatever. I was making something up because I didn't want to do anything. I just wanted to stay in bed, cry, or watch a really sob movie just to be in my own feelings.
Yeah.
And you were like, no, you're not going to, no, let's go. Yeah. And if it wasn't for that, I probably would have stayed in that rut for a long time. And who knows what. And during that time, I think, God, it has to have been now 12 years now from the time I changed my lifestyle, where I started working out. I started waking up early, 5 a.m. and slowly, daily,
creating a routine.
Yes. Daily routines, it helped me to get out of that, because I was not doing well as a partner. I was not doing well as a mom, as an employee, as a daughter, friend, because I was isolating myself. I didn't want anyone to know what was going on with me. I didn't want to face anything that was going on with me. I didn't want to face it. And I think with that daily routine, I started to make myself heal mentally, emotionally. Unfortunately, it ended in that relationship, which I needed, I think. I don't think I know. And for not just me, but for my kids. And sometimes it takes being uncomfortable in a
Mm-hmm.
situation to really get better.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
for me, all the things that was on this list, depression, I didn't know about the immune deficiencies yet at the time,
Mm-hmm.
lack of sleep, for migraines. The migraines were awful. I don't know
Mm-hmm.
how many times I called
Yeah.
in. I don't know
Yeah.
how many times I was in the closet. I
Oh,
was
yeah.
under, I was,
Yeah.
it was bad. But my thought was, oh, it's just migraines, or it's an inherited thing, or it's my DNA.
Mm-hmm.
There's
Mm-hmm.
nothing I can do. And really, it was stress. I
Yeah.
was under so much stress. And
Yeah.
it's hard to see that when you're in the
Mm-hmm.
middle of it
Right.
versus now when I look back. Fast forward, and I'll give you a little background here. I don't think we've talked much about it, but other than the first episode that we've talked about, where in the last year or two, we both went through a divorce.
Mm-hmm.
And luckily for me, it was I mean, I think for both of us, for me, I went through a divorce from someone who struggled with mental health issues, with addictions, with a lot,
Substance abuse.
substance abuse, and I wanted to help him. I wanted to try to do as
Mm-hmm.
much as I can to, because that was my husband.
Yeah.
But in taking that on, I was doing everything.
Yeah.
I was mom still. That didn't stop. I was working. I was the only one working. I helped him to get his appointments, getting to sometimes across the state for myself. And it was taking its toll. And I think
Mm-hmm.
by the end of that first year of all that starting to happen, my doctor had me tested, and I started to have all the markers of autoimmune diseases.
Mm-hmm.
And then now, fast forward, um, it's gotten better,
Mm-hmm.
but definitely still working on the stresses and the different things in life you can't really control.
Yeah.
And finding different ways that works best for me. I'm still
Mm-hmm.
navigating that. Um,
Yeah.
so
And I remember when you mentioned to me back then, when all the migraines, we both suffer from migraines naturally. We're very sensitive to when it comes to a lot of things like the wind, the cold, the too hot, the sun, or the stresses, obviously, certain foods, smells. Some of us just are more delicate than others when it comes to things like that.
yeah,
But I remember back in those years, she said, "Hey, I went to my doctor, and they gave me a medication that prevents my migraines." And I'm like, "What? Like,
yes,
who does that?" And I'm like, "Why would you do that?" I remember
right.
having that conversation with you, and I used to suffer from a lot of migraines back then as well. I was going through so many things at the time, and just said you should try it. It really works, And I said, "Do you still get migraines?" You're like, "Yeah, I still do, but not as much." I'm like, "What's the point of the medication?" Right. But I got to a point when I was so desperate. And it had to be at least like a few years later that I tried it. And the side effect for me was that I lost taste. I lost the taste of food. I could not taste food. I'm like, what is the point of taking a medication to prevent a migraine or a headache if I can't even eat? I don't taste anything. I'm not enjoying myself, right? I said, and then I just went back. I'm like, all right, something's got to give. It
Mhm.
perhaps there has to be something else. And at this point, I'm not such a low level in my life where I say, man, I really need to change my lifestyle and the things that I'm eating, the things that I'm putting in my body. There's a saying that said, "What you eat is what you are," right? Or is that's how it goes, right? What you are, what you eat is what you are. What you are is what you eat.
Yeah.
Something like that. I've seen that, and in social media, and people do talk about that, and it's the truth. You are what you eat, and unfortunately, here in the United States, we don't have what we used to have in our country, in our islands. Everything was
Yeah.
fresh food, fresh.
And cheaper. Like healthy
Yeah,
things are actually cheaper. Not
yeah,
here.
yeah.
You want
Very
organic?
inexpensive.
Mm,
Is it really organic? Just saying. Um,
Yes.
they were extremely inexpensive,
Yeah.
right at your doorstep. I remember we have the people in the carretas, and carretas are just, the bikes filled with fruits and vegetables just coming early in the morning, and my grandmother would come and buy tons of different things. Even the meat, you would have the butchers in each corner up until like noon. They're killing chickens right in front of you and chopping it up very fresh just for you. And the eggs, everything super fresh. Here, the first time I saw meat in packaged, like, was here in the US. I go to the supermarket. I'm like, what is this stuff? I remember seeing a papaya. We call lechosa, a papaya. We call it lechosa in the Dominican Republic. And it did not look like one. It was like very like small, and it was like extremely wrinkled. I'm like, this not supposed to be wrinkled, Why is it still on the shelf? Like, why is it still out here? This is bad, right? So same thing with the avocados. You're like, oh, how's
my gosh, the
avocados?
little avocados when they were so tiny. I was used to the big ones, big ones. And even the pineapples was bigger, and the watermelons, and they walked around with big buckets of it. And
it's a struggle here.
The funny thing that you mentioned about the medication, that the loss of taste, that was the first time I actually tried and liked spicy food, because I couldn't taste it.
Oh,
and I was
Lord.
like, oh, I can do it. And
Christ.
because I know, growing up in Belize, especially in my family, spicy food, habaneros, like I could not do it. I had a bad experience, and after that I'm like, nope, mild. If it's nope.
You got the heebie-jeebies. You got the heebie-jeebies.
And then after that, when I was taking that, I was like, no, I'll just try and see how it is. And I'm like, I can handle it. And then you were like, that's because you can't taste it. I'm like, oh,
yep. Can't taste it. It's crazy.
No,
it's
insane. But I did try it. Didn't mean I could taste it, but
that's hilarious. Hilarious. But honestly, those are the things that we try to do to block our pain, to block our frustration, to block what are the things that we don't want to confront, those stresses that accumulate through time. And they can start from the beginning of time, beginning of childhood, the beginning of your memories, things that impacted you. It could be something that someone hurt you in some way. It necessarily have to be physically, maybe mentally, or an event that happened early in your childhood or throughout as you're a teenager. Someone maybe passed, someone you lost, whether it was, in your life, as part of your life, and it's no longer in your life, or someone that's just, it's no longer here with us, right? So a lot of those things, especially when we're young, we don't know how to process. We don't know how to digest. We don't know how to mourn those things. I like using the word mourn. Because mourning is not just, someone died or something, or someone died, and now you're mourning.
It's the end of something. You're mourning the end of something.
That is correct. Yes.
And I remember you saying that a lot to me, and you still do. You still do. That you have to mourn the end of something, the end of my marriage, the end of a chapter, the end of fill in the blank. You just have not had a chance to mourn. And you were right. Like, it's hard to acknowledge things that you're not fully ready to dive deep in. And I've heard and I've seen time and time again, those unresolved issues that you bury, that you just don't want to, it starts to show up in these diseases. And I see that, and I'm more aware of it now, because when there's an instance of a stressful or some kind of event, my body reacts first before I do, before my mind can process it. My whole body just kind of
anxiety.
Yes. Oh, anxiety.
panic attacks. Oh, I've had
The chest
lots of
pain.
those, chest pains,
Mhm.
instant headaches. Those are, it's almost selfish. It's not almost, it's selfish to carry on stress throughout your life because it truly affects other people around you. It
Yeah.
affects your loved ones. When I was struggling in my marriage, and then decided to, obviously led to a divorce, decided to go our separate ways. I was struggling so much mentally, which led to almost my death, while I was giving birth.
Yeah.
Struggled for a long time because of the level of stress that I had. It was unbearable. I did not know what to do. And I did not want to tackle it. I knew what I had to do, but I didn't want to do it. And in that, I was selfish because it affected my health in a way that I was in bed for months because I couldn't move because of all the surgeries that they had to do during that period of time when I gave birth to my son. But it affected my children. I could not be a mother to them 100% as it should be. A friend. I couldn't go to work. I couldn't do much of anything, right? I was sad. I was depressed. Now I have to, take all these medications, which, by the way, before that happened, comes to find out, us women, we have a crazy, unique reproductive system, okay? And we have inherited all the fun stuff that men don't get. And, I'm preaching here, okay? And and to be completely honest here, I have what it's called fibroids. And fibroids feed off of the imbalance of your hormones. But your hormones get out of whack when you're under stress. And again, hence the topic of this conversation today.
Yeah.
If my levels of stress were under control, especially during my pregnancy, my fibroids would not have multiplied and gotten as big as they did. One of my fibroids during the time of my pregnancy got as big as the head of my son. Wow. It was extremely big. He got breached. He couldn't move, ended up in an emergency C-section. Everything was just insane. Today, I still live with fibroids. They're not, some of them went away. The levels of stress have obviously diminished to almost none compared to back then. But there are still stresses there because it's life.
Yeah.
And every time that happens, naturally, my hormones get out of whack, just like any female, right?
Yeah.
And it affects my body. It affects whether the fibroids get big or get small. And then that leads to medication, pain, lack of sleep, and all this other stuff. If I was to tackle the stress levels from the get-go, it will avoid all of that trickling effect of the pain and the body ache and the frustration and the lack of sleep and then everything that comes with it. Because then I have all of that, then I can't function as a human being. I can't go to work and just be 100% because now I'm not sleeping, I'm in pain, I'm frustrated because I'm stressed. But now I'm not just stressed about whatever that originally stressed me out. Now I'm stressed because I'm in pain, So it's like a lot.
You're stressing because of all those things that's happening. So you're adding to your stress.
It's like it keeps piling up, and if I don't tackle it on time, and I'm speaking in general, if this is not tackled on time, I end up in some depressed. Truly. And
I think one of the best advices that I've gotten, and this was when I think the place that we first met at work, and my supervisor at the time knew what was going on with me because I had to leave a lot. I had moments where I had to leave my spot because I was crying at my desk where I couldn't control my emotions, or it was because of the migraines. I had to call in or I had to leave because it was just that bad. And one of the things that he told me was, and if this is offered at your place, wherever you're working, whoever's listening, I highly recommend doing this. And he gave me the number to a EAP. He was like, you're going through a life change. I highly recommend talking to someone about it. And that was the first time I spoke to a therapist. And let me tell you, so much was unpacked in just 3 sessions, because it was at the time was three sessions. And for me, one of the things that was uncovered was my unresolved issues from my childhood. And it brought things, and then where I was with my health is not good. At that time, I was overweight, I was depressed, I had pain, I had the migraines, couldn't sleep, and all the things just kept piling. And exactly what you were saying, like, it impacts our bodies. Now, fast forward, now that I have this diagnosed lupus, my doctors, I have a whole team of doctors, which I'm grateful for. First thing they always ask is, what stresses do you have in your life? Because the number one thing that gives you all these flare-ups of the different symptoms is stress. And then I think the first time when they asked me that question,
killer in America.
The thing that when they first asked me that, I just started laughing. And I'm like, if you only knew. And then they just laughed at me, and I laughed, and honestly, laughter has been something that I've used to cope. Because there's a lot of things you can't control. You can't just in a snap make all your stresses go away. It doesn't work like that. But acknowledging and taking the necessary steps to get better, whether if it's you're in a relationship, like, go get counseling. Put your pride aside. There's no ego in this. The first thing you want to do, and if that doesn't work, then, or on top of that, not doesn't work, but on top of that, change your lifestyle, what you eat, working out, having that balance. And if that doesn't work, well, really take a look. And for me it was the cold. The cold was like, as soon as I went outside, my whole body would hurt. So granted, the stresses along with all the combination, it didn't help, but realizing all the different factors that contributed to my diagnosis of lupus, it was an eye opener. I did all the things I needed to do. I was doing everything that they recommend to help. And then the last thing was the environment. What was around me. Everything I was doing right, and yet my body wasn't getting better. So I moved all the way from Michigan to Florida.
Boo.
I'm like, I'm tired of this, I'm done. But then even after that, there's a saying, you cannot run from your problems.
No, definitely not.
You can
definitely not
put a tropical tree in Midwest and it will die. The same thing. You cannot put yourself in a situation where it just is not meant to be. And sometimes it's the hard realization, the hardest part, especially for a relationship or for a job.
Yeah, absolutely.
All
that losses of any kind, issues in the family, not necessarily with a significant other or with the children, but mothers, grandmothers, cousins, aunties. It's there's a lot of pressure there for a lot of us out there. It's what makes a difference when we have at least impactful situations in our lives, whether it's the loss of a job, or a missed opportunity, or a relationship ending, whether it's with your friend or friends, or maybe you lost everything. You had to
start over.
you start all over again with your finances, whatever it may be. It's a loss. It's the way that it's handled that makes the difference, in my younger years, again, before this life-changing experience I had when I gave birth to Nathan, the way that I cope with stress and things that were impactful to me was toxic. They were very toxic. The going out, the hanging out, the drinking, just being around folks that were not adding to my life, were taking from my life. And obviously, eventually, I started making those changes with this most recent life experience and that I had, which was my divorce. I said, I'm not blocking this. That's not going to work. I'm going to, and this is something I've always said, allow yourself to feel, because when you allow yourself to feel, your body will heal. Always allow yourself to feel. And I would always say this to myself, to all my friends and my family. Hey, go out and let's do this. And I'll get you a ticket. Let's go here and let's go on vacation. I want to be left alone. I want to be left alone. I want to feel this pain that I have. I am mourning the loss of my family, because it's my family. It's not just the husband. We had a family. I'm mourning the life of my family. How do I mourn this without getting depressed? I looked for counseling. I went to counseling. I allowed myself to feel all those wonderful, painful, happy, sad, frustrating, encouraging memories, everything. I went through pictures, songs, places, smells, everything you can imagine. I worked through all of that. That's when I started doing yoga. I was introduced to meditation, and that was just part of the healing process. But I had to put in the work. It's all about putting in the work. If you don't put in the work, then you will continue to pile up that stress, because that particular stress or the particular scenario will turn into something else, into something else, and into something else. But it's really none of those things. It's this one that's never been dealt with, right? That affects your body in so many different ways. And it took me almost a year, but here I am. And every day got better, and every day got better, and every day got better, And for some people it might take longer, some people not. I don't know. But I truly recommend going the holistic way and get into the grassroots of your feelings. Don't be afraid to visit, to check on yourself and say, hey, how are you feeling today? Why are you feeling this way? Seriously, come on. Seriously, why are you feeling that way? What did you want to think about that?
I can picture yourself. I can picture you looking at yourself in the mirror and actually asking.
You have to do that. And
yes, yes, you're right.
You have to do that. And even if you don't believe it, you know what's helped me a ton, especially through that time after I gave birth. And it's hard. All your hormones are out of whack. So many things are happening in your life that you just can't help. And I know you know this. Then my hair, and when I couldn't, put a lipstick on. Okay? Ladies, I'm talking to the ladies out there. You having a bad day? Put your favorite lipstick on. Seriously. And even if you don't believe it, even if you don't feel it, look at yourself in the mirror and say, I'm that bitch. Okay? I'm that bitch. Do it. It works. Do your nails. Do it
Yeah.
yourself at your house. You don't need to spend time and money or gas, because we know it's expensive,
Yeah.
going to a nail salon. Do it yourself.
Yeah.
Learn to do those things by yourself. Take some time for some time for yourself, and do some self-work and relaxation, and grab a bath bomb. And if you don't have that, grab some body soap, put it in the water. It's the same thing. light light a candle.
Yeah.
Get the water warm enough to put some, if you have Epsom salt.
Yes. Yes.
It's good for inflammation in the body, which a lot of those foods that we eat nowadays that are so processed, especially
Mhm.
meat, causes a lot of inflammation. For everyone
Mhm.
out there listening to this.
No, I
So
I'm 100% on board with holistic treatments, but I will
mhm,
say for myself, what had helped me, because I felt like I was drowning. I felt like I couldn't breathe. And to a point where I had to admit, and I think it's hard for anybody to admit this,
mhm,
but I needed extra help.
yeah.
And I recommend this for anyone: talk to your doctor. It doesn't hurt to see all your options, especially if it's a dire situation where you need that help. And to admit that, you should be
Mhm.
proud of yourself.
Absolutely. That's
Be
the first
proud
step.
that you acknowledge that you need
Yeah.
help. If
Mhm.
it's a friend, a doctor, there's so many helplines. Take advantage of that, because life is hard.
Mhm.
And now even more with social media, there's so much comparing that we do that you can't control,
Yeah.
but you can control how you see yourself.
Mhm.
And I recommend always put yourself first, do your self-care. You can't show up for anyone else unless you're taking care of you.
Yes.
So on that note, please, please, please practice some self-care, whatever that looks like for you, whether it's lipstick, going out for a walk,
Mhm.
talking to your friend, going to meditation. Do that for yourself. If there's
Mm.
anything that you do for a resolution, do one thing for yourself every day.
So with that, we're going to close our episode for today. Please, please, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, and listen us here on Spotify. And we look forward to any of your feedback, uh, and upcoming episodes every other week. Thank you so much for tuning in. We love you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye.